"Let's go home," he shouted. "Let's run for it." "Oh, please, let's wait here," begged the others. "No," cried Tom, "we've got to get home. Come along, every one of you." When Tom made up his mind, the others followed him. Shielding their faces, they dashed out of shelter and along the road. Crash! Bang! There was a blinding flash, and something hurled them onto the ground. Dazed and crying, they picked themselves up and looked back. The oak tree had been split in two by lightning. Another moment under its shelter, and all of them might have been killed. How they ran that last half-mile, no one had ever run it so quickly before. Even Hetty could not outstrip the others to be the first to tell. Breathless and wild-eyed, with wet and muddy clothes, they rushed into the kitchen. "Mother!" they shouted all together. "Mother, listen to what happened to us." Some days later, the members of the Woodlawn family were finishing breakfast. Caddie, Tom, and Warren, at one side of the table, were buzzing and tittering over some project for the day. Now that school was over, their days were full of delight. Today they were talking of going to the chimney bluffs. Father folded his napkin and pushed back his chair. "All play and no work," said Father, purposely misquoting the old adage. "Makes Tom, Caddie, and Warren lazy children. Isn't that so?" He looked down the table at them and smiled. "Oh, no, Father," said Caddie. "We've been very industrious." "The results of their industry," said Mrs. Woodlawn dryly, "being dirty faces, holes in their stockings, and three-cornered rents in trousers and petticoats." "Well," said Father, "suppose I put them to work. I'm going to give you three children the far field to plow, the one next to the woods. You may hitch Betsy to the plow and take turns at it if you wish. Take as long as you like, but I'll expect your task well done. All by ourselves, without Robert? That'll be bully." "We can go to Chimney Bluffs some other day," cried the three adventurers, and away they dashed for Betsy and the plow. Indian John's dog barked and ran with them. It was almost as good as having Nero. The first few furrows were great fun. Sometimes in the past they had turned up Indian arrowheads in plowing the far field, but nothing so fortunate happened today, and plowing gets very monotonous after a while. It was a sparkling spring day with a blue sky and a warm sun. The silver birches in the wood had begun to glow with the faint aura of budding green and yellow. Overhead flew a phoebe bird, crying, "Pee-wee, pee-wee." "Let's take turns with the plow," said Tom. "All three of us don't have to go around every time. It takes only one to guide the plow. Let one guide the plow twice around the field, while the other two sit in the fence corner and tell stories." "Hurrah!" yelled Warren. I speak to be first to sit in the fence corner." "All right," said Tom. "I'll take Betsy around first, while you and Caddie sit. I'll be thinking up a story." "You spoke to be first to sit," said Caddie to Warren. "I speak to be one of to sit when Tom tells his story." "Oh, that's no fair. Tom's got to tell it to me, too." "All right," said Tom again. "I'll tell it twice, but first I've got to make it up." He flapped the reins over Betsy's back, caught the handles of the plow, and started his first furrow. Caddie and Warren settled down in a sunny corner of the zigzag rail fence to think up stories. They usually retold Robert Ireton's lusty Irish tales, or some old favorites from the tattered volume of Andersen's fairy tales. Sometimes they even told the stories which Mother read them from the young lady's friend or the mother's assistant, when they weren't too dull or moral. But Tom made his stories up. That's why Tom's stories were always in demand. Tom's stories had the virtue of novelty, and they were full of wild and bloody action. That they, too, were a sort of compound of Ireton and Andersen did not occur to the children, who knew few stories, except those in the Bible and those in the school reader. "Have you thought it up yet?" cried Warren and Caddie, as Tom came around at the end of his first furrow. "Pee-wee, pee-wee," called the phoebe bird overhead. Betsy would have stopped, but Tom slapped the reins over her back and swung into the second furrow. "Yup," he called back, "I'm getting in." Reluctantly, Warren took the plow, and Tom came back from his second round. Caddie and John's dog cuddled close to Tom as he sat down The spring air was still a little keen for sitting long in comfort. "Well, begin," said Caddy. Tom's eyes were bright with satisfaction over his story. "Well," he said, "once upon a time there was an old farmer named Pee-wee." "What a funny name for a farmer!" exclaimed Caddy. "Never you mind that," said Tom, a trifle impatient of being interrupted. "You'll know why this name had to be Pee-wee in a minute, if you'll listen." "Go on, then." "Well, once there was an old farmer named Pee-wee, and he had a farm beside a lake, and one day he was out plowing up his field when a little bird flew overhead, calling him 'Pee-wee, Pee-wee.' Now, old man Pee-wee had a pretty bad temper, and he thought that the little bird was just making fun of him. So what did he do but pick up a rock he had just plowed out, and heave it at the bird. 'I'll teach you to make fun of an old man, Pee-wee,' says he. The bird just flapped his wings and flew on, but the rock fell back and hit one of Pee-wee's oxen on the head, and it fell over dead. Well, old man Pee-wee was mighty mad, but he wouldn't ever let anything get him down, so he stopped plowing and skinned his ox, and took the hide to see what he could get for it. Well, just as he was driving into town, he saw a second-hand store with a lot of old furniture sitting out in front, and there was some young people running about and playing I Spy. Just as Pee-wee drove by, he saw a very rich man run and hide himself in big empty churn, and pull the cover shut after him. So Pee-wee got down off his wagon and took the ox hide in to the storekeeper. Page 194.